Universal Analytics is going away in July 2023. That means that we've got roughly 9 months left to get up to speed with Google Analytics 4. Now, if you haven't done so already, now is crucial that you get started with GA4 so that you have as much historical data as possible to say that you can do year-on-year comparisons to see how your marketing is going. Hi, I'm Win Perini from Measurement, and today I'm going to show you how to set up GA4 professionally like we do for our clients and how to deploy it with Google Tag Manager. Also, you can follow along with this video. We have an accompanying article and a checklist that you can download, and you'll find links to those in the video description below. So let's get started. Navigate to the admin section that's at the bottom left of your screen, and then in the middle column, which is the property column, you'll see that there's a button that says GA4 Setup Assistant. Now, if you've already done this like me, then it will say that you've successfully done this. If you haven't already done it, then the message will be slightly different and you just want to follow those instructions. Now, one of the messages that you're going to see when you do this is this screen here. It tells you that it's going to create a new GA4 property, that's going to copy the basic settings, and then it's going to turn on enhanced measurement that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But one of the settings that I caution you not to turn on is this one here, and it talks about enabling data collection using your existing global site tags. Now, the reason why you wouldn't want to do that is because this will restrict the configurability of your setup, and in turn could be limiting the quality and the amount of data that you're collecting. So I strongly recommend that you leave that off and then click Create Property. Alright, so once you've done that, let's go in and have a look in here under, so I'm just going to navigate to my GA4 property now for this test account. And once again, we're going to navigate to the admin, which is the bottom left hand corner, and we want to go to data streams. That's underneath property. Click on that, and you'll see the first listing there for data streams, and you can have multiple data streams going into the same account. In this case, we've just got one, and you'll probably just have one too. Click on that and you'll see the measurement ID. So you want to click on this little button here on the right, and this will copy the measurement ID. It's always going to be G something, and you want to paste that into a notepad that we're going to use in just a moment. Now, before we leave the screen, one thing I'm going to point out here is the enhanced measurement. You'll notice that it's on by default. You shouldn't have to touch anything, but what that does is that it Google Analytics 4 automatically collects a number of events such as scrolls, clicks, site search, video engagement, file downloads, and you can edit that by clicking on the settings button, and you can tell Google Analytics for which events that you want it to automatically track or not track, as the case may be. Then you click Save. So the next setting that I want to draw your attention to, especially if you've got more than one domain working together in your system, is called cross-domain tracking. So to go to cross-domain tracking, you go down to the section called Google Tag, and then click on Configure Tag Settings. And the next one is to click on Configure Your Domains. So we're going to click on that, and now it's going to open up a new screen. Now, if you haven't done this already, which if you're watching this video you probably haven't, we want to add some conditions. Let's say that my main website is measurebit.com, and even if I had a subdomain in front of it like that, call.measurebit, I can strip that off. I don't need the HTTPS or any of that. You just want the root domain itself. And let's say that I have a SAMcart running. Now, your SAMcart address might be, XYZ, something like that, .samcart.com. You can strip all of that off. Once again, we're only going to be dealing with the root domain here. Okay, so I'm going to click Save. Now, what does that do? Well, in a situation where you have more than one domain working together to create a system, and that system is a collection of websites where your visitors may come from paid ads, they may come from social media, they come into your site, and then they go from there and they click out and they go to another domain, and then they may go to another domain. So you may have 2 or 3 domains involved in the customer journey experience, or they may go onto an email list and then they may go to another domain. In order to adequately track and understand the customer journey all the way from the source, let's say it's an ad, all the way through to conversion, and even the subsequent events after that, let's say they go into a membership site and they become engaged there, you need to have cross-domain tracking set up. And without specifically telling Google Analytics that these sites are linked together, it doesn't know that the very same person that just clicked through from one site to the next is the same person. It has to be told that. And the way that it manages that is with something known as first-party cookies. And the name of the cookie that Google Analytics sets is something called Client ID. And the way that it passes that information from one site to the next is by taking that Client ID and appending it to the URL of the link that somebody clicks. And so when they go through to the next site, Google Analytics checks to see if that client ID exists, and if it does, it pulls that data out, and then it doesn't set a new client ID, it uses the client ID that's been given, and in this way it ties the entire customer journey together. Another feature that's related to cross-domain tracking is referral exclusions. Now, if you've already set up cross-domain tracking like we have done here, according to the GA4 documentation, you shouldn't need to set up referral exclusions, but I like to go ahead and do that anyway, just to be detailed and thorough about this. So in order to do that, we go back one screen, and then you click on the Show All button in order to reveal a longer menu here. And then you'll see that there's this option that says List Unwanted Referrals, and you want to put your domains in there that you want to exclude from showing up in your analytics as being the source of traffic. So as an example, let's say that we've got Google Ads that's going to MeasureBit, and then there's a link on MeasureBit that goes to SamCut in this case. Unless we have referral exclusion set up, any traffic going to SamCut from MeasureBit will see MeasureBit as being the originator or the origin of that traffic, when in fact it came from Google Ads. So in order to capture that customer journey and being able to accurately portray that in our analytics, that's where referral exclusions comes in. So click Save. Now I'm going to go back a couple of steps to our main admin window here, and what I want to do is look at the data settings. So I'm going to click on that, click on data retention, and you'll see that the default is 2 months. You want to extend that to 14 months. We want to get as much data as possible. Click Save. Next I want to talk about custom events, and the way we do that is generally from the application or the website. So when somebody clicks on a button, or when they fill out a form, or when they make a purchase, there's going to be some data that's pushed into what's known as the data layer. So Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Google Ads, all of these platforms now share what's known as the Google data layer, and the way to push data into that data layer is doing what's known as a data layer push. So you can see a script here, opening script tag, closing script tag, then it has data layer, all data with a small d, and then layer, capital L, and then a dot push, and then you have curly bracket, and then closing curly bracket, closing curly bracket, and then inside of that we have probably you could have dozens of different parameters in there. One of them here is the actual event name. Alright, so I'm going to grab that without the script stuff, show you how this works. So I'm just in the MeasureBit browser, Google Tag Manager container. I'm going to talk about Google Tag Manager a little bit more in just a second. So I'm going to put this into preview mode by clicking preview, and then I'm going to give it the domain, click connect, and now it's going to open it up. Okay, so whenever somebody takes an action on your website, you have to obviously go into the application, whether it's WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, Typeform, whatever system that you're using. Somebody will have to go in there and either manually put the script in there, or you'll have to do it yourself. So when somebody clicks on a button, for example, in our system, we get what's known as a view item. So you can see that the view item events coming up. All right, so in here is a case of where you would have a call booking. So I'm just going to fill that out, pick a time, and I'm going to fill in my name, book me. Hopefully with all things done right, we should get an event. So let's see that, and yes indeed we got that. So so this is where these events show up in Google Tag Manager. The event stream happens down here. Any event that gets pushed into the data layer, this is where they show up in this left hand side panel. So the way that I can simulate that is now taking that example code that I just showed you. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm just going to enter it, and you'll see that some custom event just showed up, right? So if I go to the data layer tab here, you can see there's a bunch of data that Google Tag Manager itself loads into the data layer when an event happens, but then you get the parameters that you set yourself. So let's do another example here with giving it maybe one or two more parameters. I'm going to say parameter 1, param1, and whatever you want to give it, you make sure it's in double quotes. I'm going to go XYZ in this case, close it off, and then I'm going to go param2, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Now in this case, because it's a number, I don't have to put it in quotes. It will recognize that as a number. Oops. What happened there? I missed a comma. And there we go. Alright, so we got another event, and this time we should have a bit more data. You can see down here param1 and param2. Next I want to show you how to set up custom dimensions and custom metrics. So to do that, still within the admin, we're going to go now to the configure tab here on the left hand sidebar, and then click on custom definitions. Now you'll notice that I've already defined a couple of custom definitions. Now the way that we do those, I'm just going to show you what you'd see if you're doing this for the first time. You put in a custom dimension name, and then you choose whether it's event scoped or user scoped. Now a user is just that, it's a user. You know, a user has first name, last name, email, phone number, city, state, zip, etc. Obviously we don't put personally identifiable data into analytics anymore, or into Google Analytics at least, but there's still a number of user scoped properties that you can pass to Google Analytics. In this case, we're defining event scoped for UTM content and UTM term. It really surprises me that both of those dimensions aren't by default in Google Analytics. Well, it does recognize them, but for some reason that's really weird to me, they don't actually show up in your reporting unless you manually add them here. Now one of the things to note about this is that when you go to add a parameter, it won't allow you to add that parameter as a custom dimension unless the system has a memory of already have seen that. Right, so it's got to have actually seen the parameter. So if you're not seeing a UTM term and content in this drop-down menu here, it means that you haven't had a link of somebody visiting your site. So the way you do that is to, let me just do this, is you'd create a link that looks like this. In my case, it's https://measurement.com ? Okay, and then after that question mark, I'm going to put UTM content equals test. That's all you need to do. Just put a test result on there, and the ampersand, and UTM term equals test. Click that, and then it'll take maybe an hour or two for that data to show up in your Google Analytics. Maybe it'll take 6 hours, who knows. Come back, and now you'll see that as an option here to add those custom dimensions. I won't go into too much detail with the custom metrics. It's pretty much exactly the same process. You know, difference between dimensions and metrics. Well, metrics are to do with, length and width and duration, etc. So let's just create one as an example. So you can see here, metrics in terms of time, metrics in terms of distance, currency, etc. So let's say I'm just going to make something up here. Anyway, you get the idea. Similar kind of thing, but in this case we're measuring something. We don't have any custom metrics set up here, so I'll leave that to you to play around with. So next, let's talk about conversions. Now, the system sees purchase events as a default conversion. All other events, however, are considered to be optional, so you may want an add payment event as a conversion, or you may not. There may be custom events that you're sending through that you also want to set up as conversions. And a couple of reasons why you'd want to do that. Number one, you've got two default reports within analytics. So let's go to reports, go to engagement, go to events. You'll see the events, all of the events there with the amounts happening. If I go to the conversions report, then it'll only be the conversions that you've marked or toggled as being a conversion that will show up in this report. Also, in other reports that you put together, under the Explore tab, so if you click on Explore, you can create custom reports here that are very, very powerful. If you've played around with Data Studio, then this is very similar in terms of how it works. And often you'll find that there's certain queries or reports that you can only generate when you define an event as a conversion. I'll just leave it at that for this particular point. Next, let's talk about linking different Google products to your analytics. So the way to do that is to go to admin, and in the property column, if you scroll down, you'll see a list of Google products that you can link to this account. Probably the most important one here is the Google Ads one. So if I click on Google Ads and then click link, and now it's going to give me the option to link to my Google Ads account. So if I click on that, any Google Ads accounts that I'm currently logged into in this particular browser, the system will see it and will give you the option of being able to do that. If you want to now link that account, you click confirm. I'm going to show you an example of how that may look with a client account. And so I've just blurred these things out. So a couple of benefits. Number one, you get access to the ad cost data, the campaigns, ad IDs, all of that. So the system can see all of that coming from Google Ads, and you can build all sorts of reports out of that, whether that's to do with your attribution modeling, first click, last click, linear click, data driven. I've got a separate article on that, and I'll put that link into the description below as well. But also you can calculate ROAS, you can calculate lifetime value. So as long as you've set up your data layer, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but as long as you set up the events, the event parameters, that you're sending things through like product title, ID, transaction ID, revenue, tax, shipping, etc. As long as all of that data is going into your Google Analytics in the correct way, now you can join that together at the other end with your advertising. In this case, it's Google Ads. And now you can join that together and you can do custom acquisition costs. You can figure that out. You can your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, your ROAS, lifetime value. All of these metrics or KPIs help you to make decisions about which marketing campaigns are working, which ones aren't, and being able to make decisions for your business. So that's Google Ads. Next one, let's have a look at the next one there. Another one that you should definitely be looking at is BigQuery. So in order to link to do this, you need to create a Google Cloud, a free Google Cloud account. So if you just Google Cloud Platform, when you sign up, you'll see that they offer you $300 of free credit over 90 days. There it is. So you have to use that within the first 3 months. So signing up is free. Then you add in, make sure you add in your billing details, because what will happen is once the 90-day trial finishes, they do give you a warning, but somehow those warnings end up in spam, ironically, or you just miss them altogether, and then your accounts go down, which isn't very helpful. So you'd log into Google Cloud, you'd create a BigQuery instance, which is basically a database that's specifically designed for analytics. And the reason why you want to do that, you'd want to put your analytics data into BigQuery, is because once you've gotten past the retention period of 2 months, or in the case of 14 months, if you're following this guide, some of your data starts expiring, and the only data that Google Analytics keeps is an aggregated data set, meaning that they dump a whole bunch of data and they only keep bits of it that make sense for your historical reporting. If you ever want to do any kind of detailed analysis on that data, you're out of luck, right? And this becomes a problem when you're trying to see patterns over a period of months or years. You're trying to figure out what the lifetime journey is, which marketing channels are working. There's so much value you can extract out of your data as long as you structure it the right way. And one of those data points is obviously your analytics. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get your analytics data into BigQuery. And even if you don't know what you're doing with it today, perhaps in a year from now, you'll get some ideas to go, oh, I've got all my data there. I'm going to either figure out how to do this myself, or I'm going to hire someone to do that for me. You can't magically invent the data. Once the data is gone, it's gone. So it's better for you to collect it and not need it than for you to need it and not have had it collected. I can't tell you how many times I've done this on client projects, trying to join together data from all over the place, just trying to figure out this customer journey because they hadn't had the foresight to collect that data in the right way from the get-go. So I recommend that you set up Google Cloud Platform, that you set up a BigQuery instance, and that you just simply link the account there. You can see that I've got one linked here. I'm going to turn that off. And in order to delete the connection, you can just click on delete here and it's gone. So thankfully this is just a test account, so it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to do it again for your benefit. So I'm going to click on link and then choose a BigQuery account, and then I just choose one of those and then click confirm, and now that will be linked. So now you have two choices. One is to either stream it in real time, or to do a daily batch. It's cheaper for you to do a daily batch, and if you're wondering how much the costs are, if you're a typical small to medium-sized business, you'll be lucky if this costs you more than $1 or $2 a month. Honestly, even for pretty decent-sized businesses, it's unlikely that you're going to incur any type of meaningful costs beyond a few dollars a month. You know, if you're enterprise, maybe you'll get up into the hundreds of dollars, but for smaller businesses, I don't even think it's a consideration at all. And really, for the cost of a few dollars a month, it's a serious asset that's collecting value there, and then you can query that at any point in the future. The last one I'm going to talk about is the Search Console. And the reason why you'd want to connect this one is so that you can pick up on all of that knowledge about keyword queries, where people are coming from, how many times you're being viewed in the search engines, and it links what's happening in the search engines to what's actually manifesting in your website itself, right? So it's linking that data together, and it gives you understanding about your organic search that way. I won't go into any detail there, I'll let you figure that out. But in the article, we go into a bit more detail, and we cover linking some of these other accounts as well. One other thing I want to show you before we leave the Google Analytics setup. Let's say that we're testing in Google Tag Manager. You saw me do that before. I'm just going to click on connect here again, and you'll see that in the top here I have this parameter, right? So what happens is every time I test, my analytics are still picking up on everything I'm doing while I'm testing, and that's not ideal. I don't really want those visits in my analytics. It doesn't really help me to make any decisions, so I would rather filter those out. And maybe it's not just testing. Maybe there's other scenarios where people are on certain pages and you don't want that traffic to show up in your analytics. Well, this is how you deal with that. So we go to the admin again. In this case, we go to the property, go to the data settings, go to filters, click on data filters. You can see that I got one here. I'm gonna edit that one. Actually, I'm just gonna click on this. I'm gonna call it GTM testing, and I'm gonna exclude that, I think. And the parameter is going to be GTM debug, right? Because you can see that I've got this GTM debug showing up here. And there's two ways I can deal with this. I can say, okay, if I'm testing, then to add what's known as a parameter to my data to say that that hit was testing data. So I can set up other queries in my system to filter that out, or I can just get rid of that altogether and put that to active. Now that's going to just exclude those hits altogether so I don't see them. Alright, so if I now save that and I'm going to activate the filter, now that's going to take out those Google Tag Manager hits out of my analytics. So that's Google Analytics 4 all set up, hopefully. And now it comes to the deployment part. So how do we deploy it? Well, there's two main ways that you can do it. Number one is with the GTag method, which is the old method, and they've made a lot of improvements on the GTag over the years. And then you've got Google Tag Manager. Now, I can understand those people that don't like complexity, that they'd go for the GTag method. Totally understandable. The problem with that, however, is that as tracking is becoming more complex, much more demanding in terms of what data you collect, where you collect it, how you collect it, whether it's events, whether it's page views, there's just so many moving parts to this whole tracking story that you got to have a system that can bend to your will. If you start off with a GTag setup, in my experience, every time I've seen a GTag setup, it's a lot more verbose. There's a lot more tags going on everywhere, and there's a lot more room for error, and it just seems to be a lot messier and not as powerful. You can't do everything that you want to do had you just gone with Google Tag Manager in the first place. That's why, hey, look, if you're going to upgrade your tracking from Universal Analytics, you may as well take the opportunity to upgrade other parts of your tracking system as well. So if you're not already using Google Tag Manager, then can I strongly recommend that you start using it today. It is free. There's no reason why you shouldn't be using it. To start using it, all you have to do is have a Gmail account or a Google Apps account. Go to tagmanager.google.com and you may have to create an account first if there isn't already one there. Once you've created an account, to create a new container, click on the three little buttons underneath the account button and you'll see this create container option there. So click that, give your account a name. I'm just going to call mine MeasureBit Demo for the purposes of this demo. I'm going to click web, create. And now it's going to give us these tags, so you want to copy these into a notepad, because if you need to add these tags to your website, the first one goes into what's known as the head, which is it's not the banner at the top of your page, but it's actually the hidden part. The head is all the JavaScript and CSS that loads before the rest of the page loads, right? And so if I were to look at the head of this page as an example, it's not very helpful. Let's go to MeasureBit. Okay, measurebit.com. And now let's look at the page source here. Anything that is between these head tags, wherever they may be now. Okay, not doing a very good job of explaining this, am I? Okay, so there's the closing head tag. So anything that comes before that closing head tag is considered to be the head. Everything that goes after that in the body is considered to be part of the body. All right, so when it comes to deploying Google Tag Manager, this head tag should go up as high in the head as possible. And then the next part here, this snippet here, should go in the opening body tag, which is right here. Right, so you may need a developer to do this for you, or if you feel technically capable, then by all means do this yourself. Okay, so that's where those go, and we're going to need a few things. So you have your stream ID from earlier. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create a variable. We're going to click new, and we're going to call this GAID. Okay, so it's not doing it. Okay, now we've got it going. Okay, so the first thing, we give it a title, GA4 ID. That's the way I like to name things. Very, very simple. And I'm going to click on variable configuration, and now we want to make a constant. So I'm just going to scroll down here, constant, and now we're going to put our value in there. Okay, click save. So now you got that. And next we're going to go to triggers. We want to create a trigger. Now let's say that I've got a generate lead event. So I always like to call my, if I'm using an event as a thing that I'm using to trigger an event, I like to put event in here. If it's page view, then I like to put page view, right? And then some other kind of identifier in there to tell me. Naming conventions are really important. You want to keep them as brief as possible, but you want to keep them also educational, meaning that when I look at it, I can see what its intention is without jumbling up my eyeballs and making it confusing for myself. So in this case, it's event. Let's say that it's a generate lead, to keep this as a standard GA4 event. So I'm going to click on the tag trigger configuration, and from the list of triggers, in this case I'm going to click on custom event, and I'm going to call this a generate lead. Alright, so far so good. Alrighty, so then I'm going to go to tags, and I want two tags. I need two tags. I need a configuration tag for GA4, so I'm just going to click on tag configuration, and I see here Google Analytics 4 GA configuration. I'm going to name my tag. So my basic GA4 tag is just GA4. This is what's going to fire when the page loads up. It's got a number of purposes. The main one is to either retrieve or to set a Google Analytics cookie, and that cookie is the client ID. That's the main purpose. It's got other purposes as well, but that's the main thing that this tag does. And this is going to load on all pages, and I'm going to give it a few parameters here. The first one is the measurement ID, so just hit double curly bracket and you can see your parameters come up here. This is a nice little shortcut for speeding up your development of these GTM containers. So I'm going to select the GA4 ID, and you'll see that there's a bunch of other parameters there as well. You can really tweak Google Analytics 4 out. We're just going to keep this really basic for now, so that's going to handle that part. So now whenever somebody lands on our page, we're going to get the basic cookie being set, we're going to get the page view, and we're going to get those enhanced events that we configured earlier. Scroll, click, file, upload, search. These events are going to get tracked automatically. Next one, we need another tag, and this one I'm going to call very generically, I'm going to call it GA4-events. So this is going to pick up on any events that come through, and I'm just going to do this. No, that's not configuration. Oops, got that wrong. GA4 events. Right. So once an event name, I'm going to trigger this based off my generate lead. And to keep things simple, there's a way that we can dynamically use this. We can make one tag, and we can have 20 different events firing through this one tag. And the way to do that is with a variable. But for now, I'm just going to make this really, really simple and just say that this is a generate lead event. This is when it's going to fire, right? And so now I've got the two tags. It's going to come up hopefully very. And I don't know if you caught it, but I made a little boo-boo there. I needed to select the GA4 configuration tag here, then put the event name, and then do that. So now I've got that. Click save, and now I've got my base pixel firing, which is GA4, and now we've got my event tag. Now, just to go back to how this might work, I'm just going to use MeasureBit again as an example. And I've already written this article, so I'm going to link to this article below this video. pretty much what I've showed you here, but it's a little bit more verbose, and you can copy and paste some of those examples that I've talked about today. So I'm just going to grab this script without the actual script, and I'm going to go to the Measurement browser. I'm going to load that again. Connect. Okay, so this is my GA4 configuration tag that I was talking about earlier, and when I click this fires off an event, a view item event. So that's an example of what that looks like. So the data I'm collecting there, it's well, I can't see much there. There we go. Email address, name. So there's a bunch of parameters that are getting passed through there, but one of them is, if I go to the variables tab, you'll see that there's actually an event name. Where is it? And I'm probably bewildering you at this point. There we go. Okay, so that's not what's happening. But view item. So what you can see there is a view item, and that's not going to be very helpful me looking at that because, oh god. And once again, I'm going to fill this out. I'm going to end up with a bunch of spam from booking myself out. For the interests of education, let's do this. Okay, so I've got an event. What happened there? Element visibility. Okay, so I'm passing some parameters through to Google Analytics for use. Well, right. So using MeasureBit as an example, I'm going to take that example code. And I'm just going to open up my console. For those of you on a PC, you can hit F12. For those of you on a Mac, I don't know what you push. Anyway, so I'm going to paste in my data layer push in here, and I'm just going to see what happens. Okay, enter. And now you can see my generate lead showing up here. I don't have either a trigger for generate lead or a tag set up for that, but if I did, it would show up here. Let's just do that real quick so you can see it. So I'm going to go MeasureBit, triggers, create a new event trigger, generate lead, if I can spell it, custom event, boom, save, got that, tag. Okay, I'm going to put a new one here. It's going to be GA4 generate lead, and we're going to use the GA4 event. We're going to use the GA4 configuration tag. The event name in this case is just going to be generate lead as per my demo, and we're going to trigger that on the generate lead trigger. Okay, so let's do that again. I'm going to preview that. Okay, so that's loading, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So if you want to give yourself a shortcut, just hit the up button, and you'll see that whatever you typed in just before will come up again. So I'm just going to hit the enter button again, and with any luck our generate lead will show up. At this time we get our tag firing as well, and that's sending off data to Google Analytics. So far we've gone into setting up the Google Analytics 4. We've also looked at using Google Tag Manager to deploy the system. Also in the article I want to point you to in the link below, we do get into talking about consent management, which will become an increasingly important over the coming months. We're not seeing much about it now, but with GDPR and CCPA, the way you collect data, what you do with it, where you store it is becoming important, and you know, there are systems out there that help you to manage that. Content grouping is another thing that I haven't touched upon here, but I do link to other resources where you can deal with the situation where you've got multiple websites And instead of creating different properties for each one of those websites, you can have all of that data going into a single GA4 property, and you use what's called content grouping in order to manage that. So there's a couple of things, a couple of big things actually, that I would point you to the article to learn more about. Also, you are welcome to download the GA4 migration checklist that comes with this video, and you can see here that I just put together a checklist with all of those points and more in order to set your system up properly. It acts pretty much like an SOP, so you can download that there. So that's how you set up and deploy GA4 properly. If you've got questions, leave them in the comments. I strongly recommend that you read the accompanying article and download our free GA4 migration checklist. If you found this video useful, please leave a like. It really does help with our channel. And if you need help, feel free to book a free 20-minute call to discuss your tracking and analytics project. I look forward to talking with you soon.